Howdy, I'm Hasu, captain of the Atlas Hordem, and welcome to the next stop on
Persona 5 Tactica.
Oh, okay. Well, who'd have thought I'd be defending a strategy game? But here we are, apparently. Persona 5 Tactica was announced alongside Persona 3 Reload and Metaphor Refantasio, leaked, obviously, officially announced with the other two as well. Apparently overshadowed by P3 Reload and Metaphor Refantasio. Doesn't make sense to me, but sure, whatever. Definably, legitimately, people are, what's the word? Are sick of Persona 5 spin-offs and they want Persona 6. Even though it's only been like a couple of years. Sure, it's been like 6-7 years. Yeah, it's been 6 years since the Western release of Persona 5. And it's been, what, 5 years? 2019? Since Royal's release. And then we got Strikers. And we also got Dancing and PQ2 and also Tactica, literally about a month ago. So here we are, and I gotta say, it's a good game. It's fun. It's fine. I couldn't tell you because I have no other game to compare Tactica to. This is my first strategy game. It's the only one I've ever played, and guess what? It's basically priming me for what? Atlas's next release, Unicorn Overlord. Let's discuss the game, because there's a lot of complaints, I guess, to go through to a certain degree, but not really. Who cares? This is a weird release for this game because definably the thing that sours it is the announcement of, oh, hey, it came out with other games. Two other games that are better are coming out, right? We got P3 Reload, Metaphor Refantasio. People are like, oh my god, it's unnecessary, blah, blah, blah. It's not gonna be good. I hate the art design, which, what? It's funny because seeing a lot of people hate on the art design of the rubber hose, divinely and legitimately phenomenally weird, but hey, who cares, right? None of it matters because it's just an art design, right? And it's also to be distinct from the other games rather than, oh, hey, they're all the fucking same, right? Because like even Strikers is somewhat different, but that's not artistic choice. That's just graphics quality. It just looks fucking horrible in comparison to P5 and Tactica. But you know what? We're not gonna complain too heftily about that because who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It looks good and it runs well. That's all that matters. Better than fucking Royal, which has a fuck bitch amount of glitches and bugs. I don't know if you've ever played, but for me personally, I had a one invisible college student. But hey, guess what? Tactica works. It's perfectly fine. If anything, the only issue I have is the load screens going into the Velvet Room and also checking personas. That's really all there is. It's just like a couple of seconds of weird loading. But other than that, what other complaints were there? The game is too easy? Sure, we'll go with that. Why the fuck not? Not really that difficult, no. But I mean, when you don't know what you're doing and you've never played the game, obviously it's going to be a bit challenging. And over the course of games, when you play them, definably, you should get better at them, right? So it should become easier. But I guess the point is, the game doesn't scale challenge. You're not constantly facing a challenge. You're just, oh, it's just getting easier. Well, yeah, because you're getting better at the game, but the mechanics really aren't changing too heftily, which I agree with. That is a bit of a problem because even on normal mode, I died like once or twice. And I mean died as in my characters died, not like I got wiped, which is definably idiotic because that's basically what the baton pass is, and there's a trophy for it. The game is basically telling you to die 10 times, assuming you would have just done that naturally, but I guess that's what Merciless mode is for. But I mean, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna maximize and be efficient with your turns and like, okay, I know how to position, I know where to go, I know what I'm doing. So even in Merciless mode, it's gonna be just as easy because the scaling is still the same regardless, but you have foresight, you have knowledge of what you're already going to do, so it matters not. I appreciate the awards, the challenges that you get during each level. It's interesting because the combat's the same, but the intricacies in which you deal with them are different. So some of them are beat enemies within certain turns, survive blah 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 for this long, but also kill this many enemies. It's very cool. That's very fun, and I appreciate it. There's also side quests that you do in the game, which actually varies up the gameplay as well. Kill enemies within certain turns, so it's either a 3 or a 1 or a 7 or a 5. It just depends. More often than not are puzzles for you to solve. Hey, you need this character to do that, that character to do that, that character to do this. It's very, very phenomenally intricate, right? So rather than it being just combat, it's as a literal puzzle in strategy form, which is very cool and very fun, and I appreciated it. It varied up the gameplay enough, and also, I mean, side quest wise, we got to spend time with the characters definably, which is interesting because a lot of people complain from Persona 5 is that we don't get to spend enough time with the characters. They don't really feel like friends, but they are. Unfortunately, the circumstances of Persona 5 is a very weirdly intricate game, right, where it's about oppression and suppression, so they don't really get the time or chance to breathe properly because they're constantly dealing with a situation, so they don't really get to have fun as much as they could or should have, which obviously is good. It differentiates itself from Persona 4, right, which was cozy, nostalgic, quaint, and you actually got to hang out with friends, and that's what you did most of Persona 4. And just to make them do that with P5 makes it Persona 4, but do you really want that? Because then it just feels the same, right? And Persona 5 Tactica technically deals with it. Do side shit together. Oh, hey, let's go help this person do this. Yusuke specifically wanted to know what it felt like when bitches were getting kicked off ledges, and he thought that was fun. He's like, oh, I want to know what that feels like. So then you go on a quest to do said thing, and other characters need help with this, other characters need help with that. Oh, we need to go infiltrate this one area and get some intel, and the intel just is some random information that really doesn't matter. And it's like, oh, okay, we did all that for that, but it's the gameplay aspect that was fun, right? Because you had to, oh, I gotta do this with that character, okay, gotta switch over to this character, and then use specifically Garu to blow that bitch over the wall. And if you know what I'm talking about, this is quest 2. That was difficult for me. I didn't really know the mechanics, so I was like, oh, okay, cool, use Garu, do this, blah, 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 blah. And then I got stuck again, and I was like, oh, it didn't matter where I was positioned. As long as they're inside my range, I could hit them regardless of what level of elevation they're at. So if you don't know the mechanics or you don't remember them, then the game is forcing you to remember, and like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then maybe you need to go do a guide. It basically makes you repeat the process to retain said information, to retain the combat and strategy. And then guess what? Once you figure it out, you're gonna be zip zop zooping around the map. You're gonna be in cover. You're gonna be bitch blasting enemies. You're gonna be downing everything, and then you're gonna be triple threading everything in fucking sight, right? You're gonna spit roast the motherfuckers, and then you'll be done. Let's transition into characters, because unfortunately a lot of characters are treated fairly accurately, except Joker. His dialogue options are weirdly fucky, I'm not gonna lie. Weirdly enough, Joker gets a lot of P3 Pro Tag dialogue options, which is definably uncharacteristic of Joker. I've heard a lot of complaints about the characters being static and not really growing very much, which is definably idiotic, because due to the fact that Persona 5 was where most of their growth occurred, kind of how the game works, right? It's the core game they stem from, so it makes sense they would grow a lot more there. And this game is not really the same. Definably, it is Tactica. It's a strategy game, as you so-called spin-off. Obviously, it does not have the same amount of time and effort as they did with Persona 5 and or Royal. But you get my point. And or Persona 6 or Persona 4 or Persona 3. It's just a nice, fun little romp. Not as lengthy, but it's a little more linear and obviously doesn't contain as much character development, obviously. However, they do supplement that with the characters obviously hanging out with each other. However, I will state, I believe this is a wonderful transition between 5 and Strikers, because Tactica, the characters have learned their lessons in P5, which it has been instilled in them. And then guess what? Now Toshiro retroactively, because Tactica takes place before Strikers, he is the first person the Phantom Thieves help. And then what does that build to? The characterization in Persona 5 Strikers, which is practice what they preach, right? Now it's their turn, each character from the Phantom Thieves, to go and be what Joker was to them in Persona 5. Definably, that is what this arc is. And obviously, I really hope Persona 5 Tactica isn't the end, because definably I enjoy this spin-off series. And I've already said this a lot in other videos, but if it weren't for these side games, Persona 6 would have come out by now. And guess what? They wouldn't be putting the same amount of effort, right? Because they have a budget. And each of these games that Persona is making with the Persona 5 series specifically and the Persona 5 cast, those games are helping fund other Atlas games. It's helping P3 Reload. It's helping Metaphor Rifantasio. It's helping Unicorn Overlord. It's helping fund the 2 unannounced games we have for 2024. It could be Persona 4 Rewind. Who the fuck knows? We don't know yet. So obviously, yes, they're gonna milk it, and I know people aren't happy about that, which most of you haven't even played P5, so I don't want to fucking hear it, because Persona 5 Tactica is good. It's fun. It doesn't need to be another masterpiece like Persona 5 is. It can just be a good fun romp of a game. They just go on another adventure and we experience that story, because guess what? The Phantom Thieves aren't the focus of the game, definably, obviously. They aren't the core characters. Toshiro is. Arena is. Eri is. Spoilers. Whatever. Fuck you. You should understand that, because it's wonderful. And guess what? The Phantom Thieves are just the catalyst by which the narrative takes place, right? Is it worth your $60? Yes, I do dare say. You get your money's worth playing this game. Why? Because you get 40, 50 hours depending on how fast or slow you play, how well you do, right? Or if you choose to spend time doing other stuff, if you want to grind it out. Because for me, I beat the game in like 40 something hours, which is well under, or I don't know how longer. I don't even remember. I don't recall, because I don't care. Because who gives a shit about how long the game takes, right? If you're speedrunning, yeah, it's of course it's gonna be quick. If you're not paying attention as much, of course it's gonna be fast. If you're not definably actually experiencing every single minute detail of the game, clearly you're not going to be spending as much time compared to other people like me. I believe I did spend more time on the game than actual other people, and I'm doing a merciless run again because I actually like the game. However, with that being said, let's discuss the gameplay, because the gameplay is pretty fun. It's pretty nice. It's a little simple, but it kept me engaged. It's interesting, right? Because we have certain enemy types. We have the musketeers. We have the Hulk fat buff bitches. The umbrella geisha bitches. Sumo Mikitsa-lot bitches. Oh, ninja bitches? Forgot about those guys. The issue I have mainly with the gameplay is the elements. Mainly because the elements exist, but they really don't matter, right? They're ailment based and or position based, rather than actually being weaknesses, which would have been cool. Instead of just having them gain ailments and getting hit, it would have been nice to have weaknesses, because then it forces you to actually think about your team composition, which would have been fine, right? To diversify and actually have characters have elements outside of their own, right? Like Ryuji, fire or wind or some other element to help him out, right? So, oh, I like Ryuji. So since you have lightning, you got to cover him with other elements. However, you only get 2 extra skills because each sub persona only gives you 2 skills, which is actually only 1 because they come with a skill, so you only get 1. And when you're fusing personas, if you made bitches, that means you have 2 personas with 2 extra skills, so you have 4 skills, and you can only pick 1 of those on top of the base skill the new persona comes with. So you have to pick 1 out of 4, which kind of is really irrelevant at that point. It's like, why even fucking bother? But then you're also like, damn, I need money, so you need to put the treasure money or some other passive that helps you with gaining money or doing attack damage. But then you have to choose with, oh, do I want that or do I want this? Do I want this or do I want that? And then also still having whatever base skill they have. And if it's not a skill you particularly like with the gameplay design, then you're fucked. Because I don't like Garu. I don't like the sweep ability. But if they have it, I'm like, all right, well, fuck you then. I'm gonna just give you a random bullshit skill I don't give a shit about, or give you something so that I confuse you away and then keep that other skill. It's unfortunate because it would have been cool. Let me explain why I think this would be cool if they kept weaknesses in. So the baton pass is the death mechanic, right? If one of your characters dies, you can baton pass, you can bring in somebody else. However, if you down somebody with a crit, and regardless of whether they're in cover or not, they'll still get hit by that element, which would have been phenomenal, right? Because then you can clap them up, get the crit. So if they're not weak to it, they'll just get pulled out of cover. But you got that down. So then guess what? You get a baton pass and you can switch that character and then position them some other way and then down another bitch that's weak to that new character's element that you swapped in. And then guess what? Swap them out again and then you get another one more. And then guess what? You see my point. There's variety rather than just being cover and ailment based, because the ailments really don't matter for the most part. Shock, Frozen, and Forget are the only 3 ailments you technically have to technically negate a turn from an enemy. However, with Garu, Nuke, Sayo, right, those 3 are more position based, where Garu sweeps an enemy away from you, Nuke vortexes enemies and clusters them together, Zeo damage brainwashes them and pulls them to the character. So that can be beneficial when you need it. However, it can be detrimental, because if you're Haru or any other character and you want to hypnotize one of the big buff bitches, then you literally pull him into range and then he'll hit you for sure. The game concentrates more on the strategy of cover and not in cover. So there are limitations, which aren't bad. Obviously, the mechanic does wear thin over time, because at some point you want challenge to be there, but when you learn the game and you know how to play, then it renders everything useless, because then it's just crit down, one more, crit down, swap to somebody else, and then GG's, right? And regardless of whether it's a disco ninja frog or an umbrella geisha bitch or the buff bitches, you hit them once and then you can down them anyway. So it all boils down to the same thing, which is, I believe, why people see it as boring and trite. If anything, it becomes way too easy, because regardless, it still ends up the same way. Whereas if there was weaknesses and ailments or this or that, it would have been great. Umbrella geisha bitches, they block this, but they're susceptible to ailments, right? That would have been fun. But it's like, no, just literally get behind them and hit them, and there you go, GG's. It doesn't fucking matter. But if you shoot them from behind, if you blast that ass up, yes, it does. However, it doesn't really change much. Narratively speaking, I'm going to be bringing up these two sections now, mainly because we don't really need it later on. We deal with two characters, Marie Anto and Love Buddha, creepy bitch. I forget his name. It's Toshiro's dad. His father, Yoshiki Kasukabe, which are the first two antagonists of the 4 total kingdoms. Now, definably, we are introduced to them first, technically, after the intro to the video game. They're fine. They set up a lot of introduction where 3 and 4 will complete that journey. And definably are good, because again, they're expansions for Toshiro's character specifically. Obviously, I'm not calling her Marie, because they literally only named her Marie for the sake of, there you go, it's literally that one cutscene just so that it rhymes with every day. Nobody noticed that. Everybody just let that sit by them for some reason. But yes, that's literally why she's named Marie instead of Marie. Or maybe in Japanese it actually, no, I refuse to believe. The villains are decent. They're very fun. The antics and the shenanigans and the chicanery that occur within these two kingdoms are fun. Go experience it for yourself. It's $60, 60 something bucks, regardless of whether you want to pay it or not. That's up to you. Let me know what your teams were in the comments down below. I actually wish they had added 4 characters in total, right? The normal Persona 5 roster for both Strikers and P5, which was a 4-man, and then added a 5th later on in the story, which who cares? It wouldn't have changed anything, but I think it would add more intricacy to the game, which I guess you can't really call it a triple threat. I think the triple threat was also made in accommodation for Repaint Your Heart, which would have been cool, right? The main game had 4 characters and then the additional 5th. But I mean, does it make it any worse? No, it's just a thought I had, which I would have been like, oh cool, you know, the level design could have been buffed up a bit, the enemies could have been made more difficult, and or just an abundance more. They probably set it at 3 so it wasn't too lengthy and not too difficult, I guess, because people like me, I suppose, who have never played a strategy game before in their fucking life, and here I am defending this game because good God, were people complaining, and that's really why I'm doing these series of videos. No, I'm not gonna let people hate on this game for no reason. And people on Twitter are luckily learning about that, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna let the streamer tell me what to do. I'm gonna play the game and experience it for myself. It's like, great, good, as you should. Don't judge a game just like, oh god, the trailers, blah blah blah. That was my reactionary blah blah blah, because a lot of people were concerned about it, right? They're like, oh, it's not gonna do well sales wise. It's like, yeah, no fucking shit. If you talk about a game and say how bad it's gonna do before the game's actually even out, and you commentate on, oh, the gameplay, oh, the art design, oh, the plot, blah 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 blah, when you complain about those things and people watch your content, they're gonna think the same thing potentially, right? Either they're gonna just, oh yeah, they're gonna bandwagon with your ideology, or they're gonna be like, you know what, I don't agree with that. They'll play it on their own and see how good it is for themselves. In essence, you're helping reduce sales by saying, oh god, I don't think this game's gonna do well. It's not gonna do well sales wise. Of course it's not. If you don't buy the game and you don't play it and you don't experience it yourself before you've even actually touched the game. Obviously had my own concerns, but I wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't, blah blah blah, this game's not gonna do well sales wise. I'm like, obviously I know the game's not gonna do well sales wise in comparison to P5 and P5 Royal, because guess what, those are core games. Those are numbered titles. Persona 5 Dancing, Persona Q2, Persona 5 Strikers, those games are spin-offs. Not everybody's gonna buy those games. They're mainly for the niche, actual legitimate fans of Atlas and or Persona specifically. The people who actually want to keep funding Atlas to give them more money. Either way, everybody would have been complaining about either one, no games were coming out at all until 6, right? And then we would have had a drought and people would have been mad about that. Or you're mad about getting milked. Obviously, they're not going to do a Persona 4 Tactica or a Persona 3 Tactica because it's not those eras anymore. If you wanted those games, you should have bought them then. And then guess what? It didn't even matter because during Persona 4 era, everybody was bitching and whining that they were milking Persona 4. But then guess what? Those games helped fund other games and also Persona 5, which, guess what, is a fucking masterpiece and was deemed, what? The new gold standard for JRPGs, yeah. It's a fun game. It's good. I'll give it an 8. Narrative was nice. I enjoyed it. This is basically a recommendation for you to play it and or just my thoughts overall on the gameplay and the complaints, really. We'll get more into the actual narrative aspect of Persona 5 Tactica in the next video at the next station. So make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Also, hey, guess what? I have a playthrough of Persona 5 Tactica on the channel again. Right there. Help me with the watch hours. I am looking to get monetized by January 1st, 2025. So help me out. And if not, I'm retiring from streaming and YouTubing. Yay. So if you guys really want to keep me around, make sure to do those things. I appreciate it. I've been Hasso, captain of the Atlas Whoredom. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, however you choose to spend it. Until then, itakimasu.